Now, South Africa has only managed to address 5 of the 22 action items set out by the Financial Action Task Force, or the FATF, last year. The country had aimed to be off the grey list by the year 2025. And according to a statement released by the National Treasury, the 5 items that the country has addressed relate to criminalising terrorist financing, as well as increasing the use of financial intelligence from the Financial Intelligence Centre to support money laundering investigations and increasing the resources of anti-money laundering and the combating of the financing of terrorism. Ismail Momoniat, National Treasury Special Advisor, joins us now to shed more light on this. Mr. Momoniat, a very good evening to you, and thank you so much for joining us. Look, briefly help us understand the joint agreed action plan that was actually adopted, listing the 22 action items that were linked to the AML and CFT regime. We understand that South Africa only managed to address 5 of the 22 action items. So what could be the hold up on the rest of the items that still need to be addressed, sir?
No, good evening to your viewers and to yourself and your viewers. Let me explain the grey listing. I mean, yes, we are in grey listing, and it's going to be a tough road to get out of grey listing. We've been given 2 years to do so, and in a sense, we've now been a year in grey listing. And look at the way the FATF process works when you grey listed. You have to meet 22 action steps. Some of those action steps, for example, they require a sustained increase. And basically, there are 3 FATF meetings a year, or 3 times a year we report. So we've provided 3 reports, and on some of them we've made good progress, but they want to still wait for another 2 or maybe even 3 meetings before they'll assess that there's been a sustained improvement. So I think we're on a journey, and I'm not saying it's going to be simple. There are some of those items which really will require an extraordinary effort. But I'm hopeful that over the next year, as we have 3 more meetings, that as we report, we'll begin to make more speedy progress at each and every meeting. But we will almost certainly go right up to February next year to try and address all 22. That's just the way the FATF process works. And I think just to have some context, some of our institutions were really damaged during state capture, especially our law enforcement agencies. And so it's quite a long journey to get back to where they should be in terms of how they operate.
Now, Ismail, look, South Africa has already been re-rated last year and seek to get another re-rating. Now, should this be granted, will the country then see itself being lifted from the grey list? If you can also help us understand the process that is then involved in this regard. Also, this being an election year, I mean, the future is quite uncertain on many issues as well as draft policies, sir.
Yes, if you look at the re-rating, I mean, the FATF process has 2 elements. One is called technical compliance, which is our laws complying with the 40 FATF standards. And on that score, we've been re-rated, and we've now found that 35 of the 40, we meet those standards. So we're actually doing quite well. And we will be re-rated in October this year. But that's not going to affect the actual grey listing. That's going to be on the 11 effectiveness measures, and those are those 22 action items. And those are very specific steps. For example, 2 of them are pretty tough because it requires a sustained increase in investigations and prosecutions for serious and complex money laundering and for terror financing cases. So those, we'd probably need to have more cases to demonstrate that we made progress. Some of the other measures are more input-driven. They contribute towards those 2 objectives and to other objectives. And on those, I think we hope to at least have them to be deemed to have been largely addressed sooner rather than later.
Look, maybe talk to us about the direct implications, Mr. Momoniat, of having a country being grey listed. I mean, how are South Africans, you and I, directly affected by this grey listing?
Look, the greylisting definitely damages us reputationally. And when other jurisdictions want to do business with us, particularly, for example, other banks, when we have trade, we need correspondent banking services. They'll deem it to be higher risk, and that could be a bit costlier. But having said that, I think that the impact in the short term is minimal, because bear in mind that when you're greylisted, you are actually, the formal classification by FATF is that you're a jurisdiction that's cooperating with FATF to try and get your standards up. If we, however, are seen after next year not to have progress sufficiently fast, then I think you begin to have bigger economic implications.
All right. Unfortunately, we're out of time, Mr. Momoniat. Thank you so much for your contributions, though. That is Mr. Ismail Momoniat, National Treasury Special Advisor.